You know
I'll
what's
hit the
weird
real
about
record. I'll hit the real record there.
oh yeah, no,
No, yeah. Before I
that's
forget,
lovely.
I always love to read people the crime blotter, which is well, I try to read the fun ones, but there's usually several fun ones. Actually, the top headlines aren't that fun. They're all stabbings.
Hmm.
Oh, someone was killed with a dumbbell. That's here. This is weird. Man arrested for arson murder of 93-year-old grandmother says he doesn't remember doing it. Okay.
Good
Uh,
ones. You know, that's
actually, there is some.
maybe a defense.
Oh, here's a good one. Man arrested for phone stalking his own wife, calling and saying nothing up to 100 times a day.
Huh.
That's in our crime headlines. Man arrested for stealing woman's bag said he lost money on pachinko. Hmm.
That's not bad.
Yeah.
So
I
Texas State Fair just came out with no guns allowed. And the
good shit.
spokesperson
Not
was
in Texas.
I was surprised. And the woman, the spokesperson that I listened to was like, yeah, this idea that, a good guy with a gun is going to save all of us from somebody who opens fire with a semi-automatic weapon is laughable. Now, I would say a good guy with a gun might stop the person with the semi-automatic weapon after they mow down way too many people. But
Right, right.
better
Then you
better
call
to
in the
just better,
cops.
and this is probably best left for our next segment, Matt. About, is it a good idea to
Oh yeah, we're
have
gonna get
guns
into that,
places?
aren't we? Oh, here we go. I got the this is from several days ago, September 3rd. A Sapporo man arrested for possession of 33 handguns says he bought them for fun. Um which okay, that sounds so. I have been buying guns as a hobby for 15 years. I wasn't going to use them to hurt anyone. I have never fired any of them. So just a collector.
Just
Uh
a collector,
no, no,
just collecting.
also on the blotter. And some of them were replicas. That was weird. You can have replicas in Japan if you want, which is weird. You can have, like in America, you can't have a replica. People assume it's a real gun, right? Where in Japan, they
Right.
sell replicas. You could, like, kids have, like, they don't have, like, the orange tips on the toy guns and stuff because
Hmm.
they just assume it's no, well, they're not going to get shot, are they? That they shouldn't take those toys to America, I guess. Here we go.
I
Man arrested on suspicion of cutting woman's skirt with scissors says he wanted to see her underwear. This is on a train, of course. And the woman said she didn't notice until later, that she didn't notice her dress had been cut until the next day when she was washing it. So they had to go back to the security cameras and found the guy at the station cutting her dress. So that's
oh
weird.
my goodness.
How many times did he say he had done it? Oh, I've done it about 10 times. Okay. Yeah, I thought I saw an extra zero there at first. I was like, that's wild, but 10, 10. I
Yep.
guess, yeah, shouldn't do it any, but I'm gonna pull up my notes. No, for me in notes, like if people send me a notes, I'll take a glance at it. But honestly, I send my notes mostly as a like reminder. If other
Yeah,
people
yeah,
want to
no,
read, that's
I get
great.
it.
That's
Yeah.
great. It's just it's a good way to like not be too annoying, I think. It's like, hey, I'm giving you something. Here you go. And some people like to read them. Some people throw things back at me. You said this when I didn't say that's in your notes. Oh, okay.
Oh,
That
yeah.
doesn't
No, I
happen very
got yeah, I did not get a chance to check your notes. What I do, I am curious though, and I'll probably look at them at some point. Um, Maybe I'll pull them up. I think, did I close Discord? There it is. I can close that. I got my notes. Is like how many of the similar things we pick up on.
Yeah, that's usually the
Um,
most curious thing. I mean, you end up finding some of them talking about it, but yeah.
yeah.
Uh, I didn't write a ton of notes for this. I guess it's, this is one of those. Of course, I watched it, but I'm like, man, I have this episode basically memorized, right? This is kind of
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's such a so deep seated in pop culture.
like
Um,
I did Finding Nemo last week. I was like, I don't actually have to watch Finding Nemo. I did, but I didn't have to. Next week, I actually, yeah, Your Name we have scheduled for next week. I could get away with not watching that, but I will because I like it.
what's next week?
That was if it's still
Oh,
cool,
Your Name?
your name is
Man, I watched that movie. I fucking loved it. And then my wife reminded me we're going out of town next weekend.
oh, okay.
So you still have the regular gang for that. And I was just like crap because I know you moved it once, from like a Tuesday or something to a
Oh, it was actually
Sunday.
going to be now. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Let me see when I had it scheduled really quick. It's telling me it was scheduled for 7 p.m. Monday your time.
Right.
Your time. But yeah, whatever. John actually stepped in a little bit because he 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 got busy, right? So he did the
Yeah.
absolutely fucking terrible film 50 Shades of Grey with us, and then Miss Spice World. Should have been the other way around, right? Coming for Spice World and Miss 50
Yeah.
Shades of Black, excuse me, 50 Shades of Black. It's the parody movie starring Jamie Foxx, not the
How, yeah, I don't, yeah, Jamie Foxx he's had an interesting sort of career arc lately.
Yeah, so we
Um,
did that, and then the next week is like, sorry, I can really only do one. So he chose the Space 1999. He chose the Devil over the Spice Girls, Devil's
okay.
Planet, but that's fine.
This is the Spice movie, Spice World. What was it? Some shit like that.
Spice World, yeah. So we ended up
Yeah.
having a BC and his wife came on who dressed up as Ginger Spice, so that worked out.
Lovely. Yeah. But yeah, so I watched the movie last week because I knew I was gonna have to give it a couple of takes, and
Mm-mm.
I got done just that very last line with excuse me, it's just okay if I ask your name. I was just like,
No, that staircase is like a major photo spot in Tokyo now. People just go there and
oh
because
wow.
all the locations are real. Well,
Yeah,
the town's not real. It's based on
right.
like several towns like where I live though. So
Hmm.
there is a city with a giant lake, but it's not. It's an actual like medium-sized city. It's not a little
Yeah,
village.
gotcha.
But then I
Gotcha. I
went
didn't know that.
like
I didn't know that's how they made sake. That freaked me out a little bit.
not usually. That's the special sake. That yeah.
No, yeah. No, I know. I didn't think they did that anymore.
No, but I mean that was never a common thing. But like
Yeah.
last year, I drove about 45 minutes from here to go play a concert actually, and that was
Hmm.
just a river going through a town. But that town was like totally like the one in that movie. Like we went, and the high school band was there, and since not too many foreigners come through, and there's a cello player that's not Japanese, they were kind of like
Cello.
flipping out about the foreigner being there because Nagano City, whatever, there were foreigners are all over the place, but
Yeah,
out there, not so much.
I got it.
Uh, I guess we should go ahead and roll this one.
Yeah,
And just keep me
appreciate it.
updated. We'll do it or we won't. So,
Yeah.
um, I well, actually, before I do that, I'll just say a few more coming up that see if any of those are of interest to you. Uh, I'll try and I'll read good and bad list, I guess. Let's see. Oh, actually, Three Ninjas, High Noon, and Mega Mountain. Um, Braveheart as open still.
Hmm.
Hercules in New York with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Made that.
The Dark Knight Rises, that doesn't have a name on it yet. We're doing that in
Oh,
like 3 months, so yeah.
okay.
Well, well, I know your name's already on for some superhero stuff, if I remember correctly.
Okay. I'll take a look at the Google Doc.
Oh yeah. Dirt, that's why we have
Yep.
it. That's what I'm
Yep.
looking at. What am I
Yeah, but it was a
doing?
good
Okay.
but it was a good reminder,
Yeah. Uh,
as are your notes.
okay, zoom in. There you are again. Oh, okay. Give it a 5-second pause and I will start this show then. Hello, welcome to Time Enough Podcast. It's where we delve into all of the episodes of The Twilight Zone and beyond. As always, this is Matt here, coming back from Mission Log Orville. It's Mike Richards. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Matt. Thanks for having me back on season 5. Holy cow.
Yeah.
Yeah, just so we're done with the hour-long episodes. Back to the half-hour format on Twilight Zone.
Yeah, it's kind of confusing because I keep blocking out nights where I'm like, okay, I need an hour, and then I'm finished. I'm like, oh, that was 25 minutes, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah, it was, but tight 25.
Right. No, I do think that the format of the Twilight Zone just is made for 25 minutes. And the producers would have told you that too, because it was not their choice to do the 50-minute episodes. That was kind of
Oh, that
put
came from
upon
the
them.
network or
Because Twilight Zone and the show after were canceled, they put a new show in. That one didn't last, so they didn't invite the second show back. They only invited Twilight Zone back. We're like, well, you got to fill the hour slot now. So
right.
that's how season 4 happened. And I don't know at the time if anybody was like season 4 is a failure or something. I don't think so. I doubt it had the highest ratings though, especially as a
Yeah. No, I,
mid-season
I do
replacement.
remember you talking about that now that you've jogged my memory appropriately. Yeah, they probably just needed that stopgap. to
Right.
get them through the scheduling, and then went back to the proper format. But yeah, season 5. So I think I've joined you for an episode or two each season so far. So yeah, have you thought about what's next at this point, or are you just gonna
Oh,
get
and
through season
beyond.
5 and
I've already done some chit chat on the podcast, but my plan is actually to go ahead and do the Jordan Peele Twilight Zone next, just because it's a little more modern. Like,
contemporary?
I can
Yeah.
jump around. Because if I go in order, I do the '80s zone, which I do want to do. It's sitting right here on DVD, but I kind of want
Hmm.
to just. My curiosity wants to go because I've seen about 5 or 6 of the Peele, so I want to see all of them. And yeah.
Right. Yeah, I didn't know if you would do that, then the movie,
Oh yeah,
then
that's gonna go with the '80s show. So
yeah,
yeah, and I
good.
got other anthologies. I could do this all day. I got on my shelf. I got Bradbury Theater. I've got Tales from the Dark Side. Those are just the ones sitting
Yeah.
on my
What was
shelf.
it? Science fiction theater, I think I started to watch quite a bit of, and I really enjoyed that. Maybe I got that wrong. 1950s in color, narrated by some some guy from a lab or a scientific
Yeah,
company,
that was one of the
labs or
ones we
something.
were when the strike was going on, and we switched from doing Twilight Zone for a bit. That was one I was considering,
Yeah.
but one step beyond was it was just more available on YouTube, so I went that
Right.
route. So
Yeah.
that's how that happened. But
Fun.
no, no, 30-minute anthologies. There's so many of those. What else is there? There's amazing stories. Tales from the Crypt I never saw because I didn't have cable back in the day. So, but
Hmm.
obviously that's
I
uh
saw the film, which was fun.
yeah, Bordello of
That had
Blood, Demon Knight. I think they had two.
yeah, right.
And
Bordello of Blood.
yeah, great title.
Yeah.
That
Hey,
was the one time they tried to make was it Dennis Miller into like a movie star? That sounds
he
bizarre now to say
did
that
a
out
couple of
loud.
things. So he had that film role. He had a couple of film roles. Yeah, interesting times.
Didn't really take so much. I do remember going to see Bordello and Blood and having a good time, like,
Mhm.
in the mid '90s. So yeah, I couldn't
Yeah.
tell you anything else about that movie, but
Creep Show was another kind of an anthology film.
right, right, right.
Stephen
So
King. Yeah.
yeah, Black Mirror's out there. Yeah, there's the
Hmm.
well for weird anthology shows is pretty limitless, but you got to start with the Twilight Zone, right?
Yeah, Love and Robots, baby. That's a
That's
good
right.
one on Netflix.
Yeah. I guess we are now to the is this the most iconic Twilight Zone? It's definitely a contender. It's probably this or
I
To Serve Man.
boy, this one. Yeah, I think this may be the most iconic one. So yeah, man, thanks for thinking of me.
Yeah, you say
Uh,
are you scared of flying? Afraid to fly?
I am not, but I do not enjoy a window seat. Mostly because I kind of like to get up every now and then, use the facilities, maybe chat with one of my coworkers. So if I'm riding in the back, I prefer an aisle. And I think Mr. Bob Wilson, for reasons we'll see later, may have been much better off away from the window. However, for reasons we'll also get into later, it's probably a good thing he had a window seat.
Yes. No, for me, if the flight is an hour or less, I want the window seat. But if it's longer
Hmm.
than that, for reasons like you just mentioned, I would prefer
Yeah.
the aisle seat.
Now
So
the problem with the aisle is you just get beat up. You get flight attendants, whipping down the aisles, elbows,
yeah,
and you
I
get
guess that middle's best.
passengers, you get people with their, who are or like two strap in their backpack, turning around looking for overhead space, and you're just
Some guy has a
getting hit in the
ukulele for
face.
some reason.
A guy with a
That's
uke, man, it's crazy. Guy with a
that's
mini
me.
guitar, all these guys.
That's me. Actually, I haven't. No, I brought last time was funny though because I tried to just not check anything in. We were going to Okinawa, and
Hmm.
then they were like, no, you. Then I had to go to the line just to get a tag. I didn't have to check the uke, but I had to put a tag on it because it was slightly too long. So I thought I was going to avoid the check-in line, but in the end, I still had to do it. But oh well, live and learn. I know next time. That won't stop me from bringing the ukulele, of course. So, but yeah, how could you go to Okinawa without a ukulele? That doesn't make sense.
No, it does not. You've got to have that.
I don't have fear of flying, but I do hate flying because my legs are long and I get restless leg syndrome. So, like just in general. So
Do you start getting some what do I want to say? Just some spasms?
do you know restless leg syndrome?
I've heard of it, but I
It's
don't know what is. But everything I know about it came from the commercial about restless leg syndrome. I don't know what it's actually like to have it.
usually it shows up at night, but of airplane too, and it's just like you have to move your legs. It's hard to explain why. You just
Oh,
you can't
yeah,
like I'll be at bed like 1 in the morning, I'm just wildly kicking because you can't leave them still for whatever reason. It's really weird.
right.
Last week, and for anyone else that might suffer from this, I go on a walk during lunch and do like a little meditation in a temple, right? But
Hmm.
the cheese was on sale, so I was buying this Gouda cheese that was really good and trying to meditate and having restless leg
Come
syndrome. I
on,
look on the
man.
internet, it's
You
like,
ca- you
oh,
can't let an opportunity slip by.
that's right.
The
Walking
Gouda
the
cheese was good.
walking the dirty streets of Ueda, Japan, eating some cheese, but I
Uh-huh.
think it seems dairy has capuchin or something, some chemical that might actually cause that condition a little bit. So
Hmm.
so I guess I need to be careful with my cheese eating is the bottom line.
Yeah, be careful with that cheese eating, my dude.
That's right. Um, but Nightmare at 20,000 Feet, I will do a little bit of the trivia on this one. The original air date was October 11th, 1963. Script is by Richard Matheson. The music is not new. It's repurposed from King Nine Will Not Return and the Rip Van Winkle caper. Were you here for Rip Van Winkle? No, you were here for the one with Uncle Ben. Yeah, another similar time
Yeah.
thing. William Shatner played Robert Wilson. While this is his only appearance on film, he can be heard on albums such as The Transformed Man and Has Been. Oh wait. Seems he was in T.J. Hooker and Boston Legal. Oh, and Big Bad Mama. Cannot leave out Big Bad Mama. Okay. Julia Wilson, and I did that on Star Trek Day, didn't I? How rude of me. That's when we're
Yeah,
recording
we
this.
are recording on Star Trek Day.
Julia Wilson was Christine White. While she managed about 15 TV guest spots, her main claim to fame is this episode in the earlier Twilight Zone episode, The Prime Mover, also starring Uncle Ben. Interesting. The flight engineer was played by Edward Kemmer. While we may have future space heroes in this episode, Kemmer had already checked that box on the bingo card with the early TV sci-fi Space Patrol, which is not the first, though. Captain Video is the first, so I guess Space Patrol
I
might be the
did. I
second.
covered Space Patrol. I wrote the 5 minute article for Sci-Fi 5, Space Patrol on the
There we
Roddenberry
go. You
Podcast
know.
Network.
I don't know who Edward Kemmer played on there, but he had a nice publicity shot I saw. So his wiki did show that picture, not his flight engineer, because well, I guess that's not the standout role in this episode. But our gremlin was Nick Cravat. While he was Burt Lancaster's BFF and appeared with him in 9 films. When his thick Brooklyn accent was an issue, his character was simply mute. So a few movies he was with Lancaster and was Run Silent, Run Deep and the 1977 Island of Dr. Moreau. Of course, the gremlin does not speak here, so maybe the gremlin should have spoken in a thick Brooklyn accent. That would have been fun.
No
Hey, I'm
kidding.
walk I'm walking here.
I just watched a film, The Secret of My no, The Sweet Smell of Success. Tony Curtis, Burt Lancaster saw it at an old theater, set in New York. So I bet that this guy might have showed up in it,
You
and
might
his
have spotted the
thick
gremlin.
Brooklyn accent might have been quite appropriate.
Yeah, for sure. Uh, if you could go ahead and give us I say prologue, but I guess it says what opening narration is what it says on the wiki
That's what it
page.
says.
I guess I should ask for opening narrations.
Go back and edit all several hundred episodes you've done heretofore
Yeah, I have
to
time. I
to
definitely
change
have
that.
time for that for sure.
Portrait of a Frightened Man, Mr. Robert Wilson, 37, husband, father, and salesman on sick leave. Mr. Wilson has just been discharged from a sanitarium where he spent the last 6 months recovering from a nervous breakdown, the onset of which took place on an evening not dissimilar to this one, on an airliner very much like the one in which Mr. Wilson is about to be flown home. The
So we
difference being,
Oh, go ahead.
oh,
Sorry.
it's okay. The difference being that on that evening half a year ago, Mr. Wilson's flight was terminated by the onslaught of his mental breakdown. Tonight, he's traveling all the way to his appointed destination, which, contrary to Mr. Wilson's plan, happens to be in the darkest corner of the Twilight Zone.
We love the dark corners, don't we?
Yeah, sorry about the long pause, man. It sounds like
No,
you
it
thought I
was
was done.
dramatic. Well, I wasn't looking at the actual prologue, so I called it prologue again. There we go. Hey, here's a question. You don't have flight engineers anymore, is that correct?
No, no, but my first job with a major airline, I was a flight engineer. I was a 727 flight engineer for Trans World Airlines. And I did that from 1990. Well, I got hired to do that in 96, completed training, flew for a few months in that position, and then went to co-pilot on the MD-80, the mighty McDonnell Douglas Super 80. And I did that for about 3 years before moving on to another airplane.
No, I was just reading it was a CNN article a few days ago. I guess it's been 20 years since the last Concorde flight. So they did
Hmm.
an interview with the flight engineer on that because the
Right.
Concorde continued to have a flight engineer until
Hmm.
after everyone else had stopped using them because it was
Right. Well,
sort
and
of
it
a
was more of a function of the aircraft type than, a sign of the times. So the flight engineer actually had a station depending on, the type of aircraft, and that station had the controls normally for fuel system, electrical system, air conditioning and pressurization, at least those things. So there was no way to kind of offload that position off of the airplane without a major redesign or a refit of the aircraft.
yeah,
At
no,
which point it would be almost an entirely new aircraft altogether.
right, right. More Star Trek Day. No, from the guy they were talking to, he's basically like, he made it sound like when the Concorde would break Mach, was basically the flight engineer doing, prepare for warp speed sort of crap. If you had time for a
Black
cup of
alert.
Yeah, if you had time for a cup of coffee, you can't say black alert. You're not going to get that coffee. You don't have time for it as a Concorde flight engineer is what he was saying. Like if you had time for
Yeah.
coffee, you were doing well.
Yeah.
You just had to
Wow,
keep your
that's
eye on that
crazy
thing the
that it
whole
was that
time.
busy.
Yeah, yeah, it sounds well, of course the flight's what was it, 2 hours across the Atlantic?
I think it was something like that because I think if they were going eastbound, excuse me, if they were going westbound, they actually flew faster than the time zones they went through. So they would actually land, you know, local time zone in New York before they took off local time zone in Heathrow or Charles de Gaulle.
Yeah, that's fun. Well, that happens when you come to Japan. Sometimes my folks visit, they arrive before they left, that sort of thing.
Oh, that's yeah. Oh, yeah, but there's a dateline involved in that too, right?
Yes,
So
yes, okay, good point.
yeah,
But the other kind of fun thing that they mentioned was when traveling, I guess traveling west, uh, they would see the sun rise. Like basically, they would see the
yeah.
sun rise in the wrong direction.
Yep. Yeah, because you're going faster. I mean, the Earth rotates about 1,000 miles an hour, right? I've
Right.
heard, if you believe such a thing. So you're flying faster than that, the opposite direction. So you'll see the sun rise in the west, which is pretty, which we can actually see too, but it's more of a function of climbing
Right.
than it is speed because the fastest the airliners, a non-supersonic airliner flies is usually, you know, like across the ground 500 or 600 miles an hour.
Of course,
You
also in
know,
the interview was we could see the curvature of the Earth. So,
yeah, that is
yeah.
true. If you believe in that sort of thing.
Although sometimes it's fun to think there's a big Antarctic ice wall surrounding us. That's exciting. That's a
It's
fun thought.
exciting to think about. That'd be cool.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
Realistic, maybe not, but cool for sure.
Maybe not so much. Well, one of the first thing that struck me on this episode, man, is Julia seems nice.
Yeah,
Yeah,
she puts up with a lot, I guess.
I thought she was great. She was protective and she was pretty and took care of him and gave the line, "Mama's taking you home."
I,
It's like
I,
what is wrong? There's what's not to like.
my note on that is I don't think you. I think he called her mama back at some point. I wrote, I don't think you
Yeah.
should call your special lady mama. It was also weird and Saved by the Bell. Weirder with high school students.
It was weirder and weirder with Jesse Spano,
They were
no
even
doubt
age
about that.
appropriate actors almost, so it made it weird on so many levels. Um, I do find it interesting. She's together, she's nice, but yeah,
Yeah.
Shatner in the Twilight Zone is always so wishy-washy, which is maybe retrospectively why he's so fun to watch in the Twilight
Well, the
Zone.
man's got range, right? Like everybody's like, Shatner, he's just does the same thing all the time. He can play an ultra confident starship captain, or he can play a super lack of confidence airline passenger. Like, You don't get that kind of range from just anybody.
Here's the thing with someone like Shatner, though. He's not an accent actor, right?
Yeah.
Like I've never heard him even attempt an accent, I don't believe. Like he's always going to sound like William
Hi,
Shatner.
my name is Billy O'Shatner. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I don't think that ever
I
happened.
mean, same with Patrick Stewart. I mean, if Patrick Stewart's voice, why would you bother doing an accent, you know?
So there was that
In
episode of
Shakespeare, I'm
Picard,
sure he does some, yeah.
uh,
Oh, the French
uh
guy, yeah.
the French, yeah, and it was so funny because like I'll occasionally watch with subtitles on, and this one I did, and like whatever he said, like they didn't even bother to translate. It just said cartoonish French accent underneath.
Yeah, yeah. So okay, sorry. And he did so much Shakespeare. I'm sure he did 8,000 accents on the stage. So I
Right.
shouldn't say that about Shatner, but
Yeah.
I shouldn't say about Stewart, but I will say that about Shatner. So
Yeah, and Shatner was Shakespearean as well. And where I was getting that from was, Nicholas Meyer was saying there's movie stars and there's actors, right? And movie stars kind of play themselves all the time, right? You see John Wayne. John Wayne is that's what you're gonna get.
he's waning.
And yeah. And he was like, when you see Shatner, like you're gonna see Shatner, like that's what you're gonna get. Like even in this, even though the role he was playing was quite different, you still got Shatner. There's something on the wing. There's a thing on the
You,
wing.
Even in my notes here, I just wrote in, I did have like a thought experiment about like if Patrick Stewart had played Bob instead.
Oh God. I will say this. That would be great. Like there would definitely be some pointing,
Yes.
full palm out, fingers out, pointing.
Um, of course, the movie remake of this has John Lithgow, who starts when the episode begins or the part
No
begins,
smoking.
he's at 10 crazy already because this is a slow
I
burn, you know?
Yeah, so I will not blame Lithgow for that. Like that had to be a creative choice of the director.
Made Mad
But
Max as well.
that was a weird that was a weird performance in that film because like I said, he got on there and he's sweating and popping pills and rolling his eyes up from Jump Street, man.
And I'll go out and say I actually like that maybe about them as much as I like this episode. I like them equally, partly because they are actually pretty different, you know?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Because the George Miller directed, it's Mad Max. It's what he did after the Road Warrior. That was his follow up to the
Right.
Road Warrior.
Yeah.
So
Uh-huh.
of course it looks like that. Like the
And it
weird
was it was a
girl
different
that's
director
standing
for
there.
each one of those scenes in the movie, right?
Oh, right, because
Yeah.
only one of them is now horribly infamous for horrible reasons. The other
Yeah,
three came
Vic.
out of the movie relatively clean. The others were
Right.
Steven Spielberg did the second segment. Joe Dante
Yeah.
did the third. He did the "It's a Good Life" one, and that one definitely TV shows better. Um,
Hmm.
the second one was a remake of um, "Kick the Can."
Yeah. Yeah, good episode.
Yeah, I don't. It's not my favorite episode, and the movie didn't like improve on it. So
Right.
it's not my least favorite episode either. It's kind of like for me that
Yeah.
one's kind of average, plain Jane, I guess.
But I do think that there was more of a honestly in this 25-minute episode. I think you saw I think Shatner gave you something to go along the ride. Like he sat down like with the aftermath of his nervous breakdown, with his doctor's approval to go fly, which I thought Julia was funny. The doctor would never let you get on a flight if you weren't cured. And I just started thinking of like all the a doctor would never let you blank lines that we could have filled that with. But you see Shatner getting on. He's like he's self-deprecating. He's self-aware. He knows what he's been through. He seems reasonable. He seems anxious, in a relatable way. And you just see him kind of go down this slippery slope of emotions until he gets to where he finally gets. But compared to Lithgow, who I think, like you said, he kind of showed up 10 out of 10, you know,
Yeah, no, this
from the
this
beginning.
definitely has the interesting build up. I do
Yeah.
wonder if this episode would be as iconic if we weren't. I mean, everyone, even if you're not a hardcore Trekkie, which we are, but even if you're not, you are layering Captain Kirk over this role. You're
Oh
simply
yeah.
think of that.
Uh-huh.
There's no way you're not going to, even if you've
Yeah.
never actually watched an episode of Star Trek. You're gonna
Right.
think about it, you know.
Yeah.
Maybe some Zoomers won't know because they, yeah.
And it was, and it's not like it's not like years had passed or anything like that. Like he looked exactly like he looks, in season one of Trek. In fact, that scene where he stole the handgun from whoever was packing on the airplane, there was some serious enemy within energy that he was that he was putting out.
I do get how like dumb things will get in your car and never leave. For example, I have this like weird like waist belt thing. I keep my wallet and stuff
Fanny
in it.
pack. They call it a bum bag in some parts of the world.
Yeah, my wife makes me buy expensive Italian ones, so
And you know it's Italian because it's got that racing stripe on it.
that's right, that's right. Anyway, 10 years ago we went driving. We went on a day trip. Like this is literally like 10 years ago, and I forgot it. And we, not a big deal. My wife started driving because she had her license. But even now, 10 years later, whenever I'm driving, if I'm on the train, I'll just check if it's there like 10 times now. Like I cannot stop checking. Even I know damn well it's there, but I just like I'm always checking now. And it's
Yeah.
weird
Uh-huh.
because there's a minor incident 10 years ago. So this guy had a
Right.
major breakdown. Of course, things are going to get.
Yeah.
And I'm talking with the assumption that he's nuts, which obviously the twist is he was not nuts. Well, he was nuts, but he was right.
So, I mean, I think there's, and I think there's, mental health issues. I mean, people get injuries, physical injuries, and need treatment. And I think, if he's in sales, in the 50s, where I think if you, or excuse me, in the 60s, where I've watched enough Mad Men to know that if you fail as a salesman, your only option is, uh, you know,
Harakiri.
is not good, is not good. I'll just leave it at that. So yeah, I think it was probably just an incredibly stressful time, and having a breakdown is not, the he wasn't the first, and he won't be the last. But he finds himself on this airplane where, it's like you said, it's where the same place where it happened before. It's going to be, somewhat triggering. It's going to be familiar. He's going to be doubting his own cognitive ability, but in the face of all the reactions of the people that he talked to, the flight attendant, his wife, the flight engineer, even in the face of his own doubts, which were significant, he was still convinced he saw something out there.
Well, he
And
did.
that takes yeah, and that takes an awful lot of confidence. Even though he was originally diagnosed with what, stress and something else, and a severe lack of confidence. So I think I think in some ways, like, this episode shows that he was cured, that he did overcome that lack of confidence and was able to, really, like I said, in the face of all other indications, believe what he saw, believe what, he knew to be out there. So I think that's an interesting um turn
You could
that
still get a
happened during
nice
the episode.
train cabin in 1963. Why didn't they take the train? That seems like
I
smarter idea.
really wondered about that with the whole Julia saying a doctor would never let you get on an airplane if you weren't cured. Get a train, take a bus, do something else. Like, now I get that they probably had a pretty far way to go. And maybe the doctor thought in his, bravado and hubris that a
Final
train ride would
exam.
be just an excellent, or a plane ride would just be an excellent, yeah, final exam, capstone event, way to prove to the world what a brilliant psychologist they are. Uh, I think bad idea. I also think probably sleeping pills in an aisle seat would have been better. But I will say this. Um, if Bob wasn't there and Julia was in the window seat, taking her, which, how she slept through this stuff, I don't know. Julia shouldn't have been sleeping. She should have been keeping an eye on her husband. However, if she was in the window seat sleeping and Bob was in the aisle seat not looking out the window, that gremlin may have, caused that engine to crash, which may have caused an aircraft accident, and everybody dies. I think Bob Wilson was the hero. I think he saved the day. I think he is the unsung hero of Gold Star Airways.
I guess that's what the movie version. And sorry, I'm talking so much about the movie version today, but I feel like it's just a worthy comparison. That's the
Yeah,
thing. Lithgow's also the hero of that, but he never
right.
seems cool, calm, and or collected. Where Bob
Yeah.
Wilson's trying his best to be cool, calm, and collected.
He was trying hard, man. He
Whereas
really he really was.
Lithgow is like running and gunning from the start. He
Yeah.
accidentally is the hero.
Yeah. And he had that, but you know what? Like that, you know, uh I don't know, tween, probably not even that much. 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old passenger who's just taunting him the whole time. Yeah, that would be enough to drive anybody nuts.
No, I had there was a on the train going to work yesterday. This is kind of along those lines. There's a kid comes on, he looks about 3, but he's got like a pacifier like connected to a little chain to his shirt. I'm like, that's weird. And then he spends the entire train ride like looking out the window every 5 seconds going goo goo goo. And I'm like, is this kid just he wants to be a baby? Like and not like in a weird adult way. It's just like, yeah,
Yeah.
sure, why not? This is cool. Let's do it.
Mm,
Like he was
that's
clearly not a baby anymore. So
that's crazy. Well, the I know you probably have some international fans. I'm sure you have quite a few. But in the southern part of the United States, there used to be some comedians, one in particular that would say, you're a redneck if
uh
you've got a naked 3-year-old drinking Coca-Cola from a baby bottle, you might be a redneck.
sorry, he threw me off for a minute. I'm actually like 50% into the Bill Hicks biography. So I thought we were talking about a different group of southern comedians.
Yeah,
Which honestly are the ones I listen to more, but
I get it, man. I really do. Yeah, just yeah, I mean, I think you have I mean, yeah, no, I think you have to compare the two with this just for like the different, zaniness and the different I think the 80s version kind of do you feel like it's set out to be campy, or do you think it just kind of was what it was?
I think the key to that one, well, hey, both of these have like first class directors. This is Superman's director, Richard Donner, right? So it's
Exactly, yeah.
I'm not like trying to say like either they're both top quality. And this one's on a TV
Right.
budget.
Yeah.
So but yeah, George Miller, he's manic. I mean,
Right.
recently you go to Fury Road, Furioso, or that thing he made between that I didn't watch.
Hmm.
1000 years. I don't he made a movie between them. He also has the weirdest filmography. So Richard Donner, it's like Superman, Goonies,
Yeah.
kind of makes sense, right? George
Right.
Miller's insane. I mean, he made all the Mad Max movies. He also made the
Yeah.
two Happy Feet. He made the second
Right.
Babe Pig in the City movie. He made like The
Yeah.
Witches of Eastwick, Lorenzo's Oil. That's an insane filmography.
Yeah.
All
And
good
good.
movies. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, some better than
Good
others,
for
but
him, man.
yeah,
Yeah.
they're all good. But you're just like,
Yep.
who does Happy Feet, Lorenzo's Oil, and the Road Warrior? George Miller's the answer. But
That's the answer. That's the for your next trivia night. That's the answer right there.
yeah. Um, so we do have to talk Gremlin. It's
Yeah.
I don't this is in that Space 1999 territory where I don't know if it's great or cheesy. You do see the rubber
Right.
soles on the foot in several shots, so that's definitely questionable.
Yeah. Right. So when he was trying to spit out, during World War II, the pilots they talked about the gremlins, right? And I think we've all talked, heard about like electrical gremlins and gremlins in the equipment, and chasing a gremlin around a car trying to fix warning lights and things like that. But the Wikipedia page, a gremlin is a mischievous fictional creature created at the beginning of the 20th century to originally explain malfunctions in aircraft and later other machinery. That checks. I've
This
heard pilots talking about gremlins my whole life.
I think this was in pop culture. This was your Gremlin until the 1984 movie Gremlins, which gave us a very different
Right.
Gremlin.
Yeah. Yep.
You say Gremlins,
There
you think of
was
this.
yeah, there was a book. This part's a little bit serious. Um this is from sorry about that. A Royal Air Force. Let me see if I can find it. This is somewhere in the IBCC Digital Archive. Gremlins, while imaginary, played a very important role to the airmen of the Royal Air Force. Gremlin tales helped build morale among pilots, which in turn helped them repel the Luftwaffe invasion during the Battle of Britain during the summer of 1940. The war may have had a different outcome if the RAF pilots had lost their morale. In a way, it could be argued that the Gremlins, troublesome as they were, ultimately helped the Allies win the war, Bresci noted. So this was, I believe, I can't find it right now, but this was a woman that wrote a book about the women in aviation. Um, yeah, aviator Pauline Gower's 1938 novel, The ATA Women with Wings, describes Scotland as Gremlin country. So there's some of that. There was actually a book and a movie that was going to be made that has some cool artwork, but that was kind of like in the lead up to World War II, and it got dropped, I think. But there's some neat artwork for a Gremlins movie with these little critters hanging off the wing of airplanes and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean it was a thing that, people, maybe talked about, and some people maybe actually believed in gremlins, and others maybe just did what they did, which is just sort of use them to explain the unexplainable.
Mhm. Bob Wilson believes in gremlins, whereas he
Yeah.
says there's a man out there
There's a
trying
man. Well, not a man.
who wants to
A
kill me,
thing.
trying to kill me.
It,
So,
it's okay, Matt. We know about it. We don't want to scare the other passengers.
so what's the difference with a Foo Fighter then? Is that more of a light in the near your plane?
I don't know what that is. I do know that St. Elmo's fire is a thing that is very real. That comes from a sailing term, which is kind of static electricity built up. And originally it was near the kind of on that leading edge of the boat. You would see a little bit of lightning, and we see that off of our windshield and stuff as well. But as far as like a Foo Fighter, like other than the band, I'm not really familiar with the term. What do you got?
It took me a few minutes to find because I kept getting Dave Grohl in my face.
Oh yeah.
Term Foo Fighter was used by Allied aircraft pilots during World War II to describe various unidentified flying objects or mysterious aerial phenomenon seen in the
Ooh.
skies over both the European and Pacific theaters of operation. So basically UFOs, but I guess Roswell hadn't, put UFOs in the public consciousness yet. So, but
Yeah, I
here we
wonder
go.
if foo
Something called the
UFO.
Robinson Panel explored possible explanations. For example, that they were electrostatic phenomena similar to St. Elmo's fire, electromagnetic phenomena, or simply reflections of light from ice crystals. But
Hmm.
I don't know. You know what? If 80s Twilight Zone did this, which they wouldn't have because the movie had already done it. But if 80s Twilight Zone did, I would have fully switched it to UFOs. Now you got color. Have some
Right.
trippy colors outside of the plane. That would be cool.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
that would have been, or yeah, I mean, just the dude in the suit, he was like, I think it was like, it wasn't this time I watched it. I definitely enjoyed it this time, but I think the first time I noticed how gracefully the gremlin exited from the frame whenever anybody else did there, he just kind of like raised his arms and blew away. And
right.
it was fantastic.
That was great.
Um, Kids, if you ever find yourself sitting on an aircraft engine with a propeller, don't put your finger in it. Don't do that. Public service announcement, because the gremlin did that at one point, sitting on the engine, put his finger in the propeller, and then just kind of like made like an owl motion.
So, so should we assume that this gremlin is so strong that extreme winds and rain will not change his walking gait?
I think you would have to. What was interesting about the wind, also, is that while the wind was pushing Shatner back against the aircraft fuselage and kind of preventing him from aiming the gun right at the gremlin until he, sheer power of will, overcame the aerodynamic force, didn't affect his tie or his jacket at all.
Kept the soles on his shoes. Yeah. Uh, let's see what else I kept writing. There's a man out there. I wrote that he said it like 3 times. So that was the mantra that just kept going in my
Yeah,
head
there's
this
a
time.
man.
I guess it hasn't been too long ago the way I watched
But
it.
I kept
That's
I
always
kept
the
going through
case.
the episode trying to hear there's something on the wing. That never happened. That was not a thing. That's a
That's the beam me up
Mandela
Scotty of the
effect kind
episode.
of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Luke, I am your father. What is it? Now I don't even remember which is the correct way and which is the wrong way for the Star
Right.
Wars quote. I'm your father, Luke? No, I don't know. He
I am your father.
he says something else.
Oh, he doesn't say that? Weird.
There's one way we all think of it, and the way they actually
Yeah.
say it in the movie. And it's not quite the same. And now I've forgotten which is which because I like reading Mandela effects things. Like I think
Yeah.
I'm finally used to the Berenstain Bears. I think I'm used to it now. They can be
Yeah.
Berenstain. That's fine with me at this point. Don't care.
Yeah. That's okay. I get it. Um, that gremlin wore a lot of eyeliner.
Yeah, yeah. Wild face.
Shatner in Star Trek wore a
Yeah.
lot of eyeliner.
I mean, you could. I'm watching on Blu-ray. You can definitely see some cake on these people's faces in a lot of these
Oh yeah.
episodes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But yeah, I just wondering if maybe that was the influence for Shatner saying, I'm going to take that with me and use some eyeliner in this next role I'm about to get."
The look was pretty close in the last Nick of Time, the last episode. He looked pretty close to Star
Yeah.
Trek Shatner there too. I mean, that's only like 2 years before this, so
Right.
or three. Actually, maybe it's 3 years. So that's straight 1960.
Yeah. Yeah, this was right before. And he was playing a 37-year-old, where we all know in season two, uh, The Deadly Years, that Shatner was 34 years old.
Yeah. So he's jumped around age. I mean, he looks age
Yes.
appropriate. This guy looks like a guy that could be in his 30s. Sure.
Sure.
Season 5
Yeah.
of Twilight Zone so far has given us ages and actors that seem to fit, which the first 4 seasons was definitely not doing. Like, here's a 37-year-old man. He looks 65. You know, it's like, what?
But that was like everybody. Like the guy that played like Felix Leitner in the second Bond movie was like 40 and he looked like he was 75.
Yeah. But that's kind of my point. Season 5 so far, it might change, but I do wonder if that this is a moment when maybe the vibe was shifting a little bit in Hollywood with
Oh
how
yeah.
they were
Yeah.
casting or something. Maybe
Yep.
I'm just going by the first 4 episodes of the season I've
Mhm.
watched so far. But yeah, it's like, oh yeah, this guy. They say that he's 45. He looks 45. Actor's 45. Okay, good for everybody.
Boom. Done.
Did you have any other big observations you wanted to throw out on?
Yeah, no, just what really drove this one home for me today was that, he was initially hospitalized for, I think it was overwork, underperformance, is that right? And lack of confidence. And, say what you will. He really overcame that lack of confidence in this story because all the indications that he was getting from people was that there's nothing out there. Like there is nothing out there. His wife, the flight engineer, like, honey, there is nothing out there. They were all, very concerned about Bob, but they were also, very convinced that Bob was having a bad day, another bad day on the airplane.
What about Bob? Take some baby steps.
Hi, Bob. But but the at the end of the day, man, Bob, whether you agree with his tactics or not, did what he thought was right to, save the life of, everybody on that aircraft. And that took enough confidence to overcome the doubt that everybody else was casting all over his story. So
Now, my notes, I'm
good.
like, sorry.
No, I was going to say just good for Bob. I think that if you're gonna be packing on an airplane, you ought to at least have your holster snapped, even in 1964-ish.
Three, but you're
Three,
close.
okay. Yeah. So that was problematic. And I think it's you know, probably not for the best that, Bob was able to steal a handgun from somebody so easily.
Yeah, I did just have in my notes like, oh, he's so more confident as a crazy dude. So, why not just take that gun and demand that they go to Havana?
Well, yeah, especially, well, we don't really know how he handled the being pulled back into the aircraft, which I'm sure at some point he was being crazy. Was he stark raving mad from that point on?
He gave a shout of
Or
complete insanity. So,
he did. Yeah, he did. He did. We just didn't get to see the whole thing.
right. I mean, that's the boring part. Is there like, I don't, well, I'm shoving pills in his mouth at that point. I don't know what you do at that point.
Yeah.
I guess you probably have a hypo to give him at that point. It's like
That would be
you
good.
are now getting knocked out.
I noted. I thought the straitjacket and his the straitjacket and his serenity in that straitjacket were a interesting, very moving combination. Any
Does
thoughts
he
on
see?
that?
Yeah, yeah. Does he see the smoldering engine, or is it just the camera and
I
us
don't
that
think
see it?
anybody did. I thought you might, because usually what happens when we're walking around an airplane like that, if you step back far enough, you can kind of see on top of the wing,
Hmm.
especially from the back to where it slopes down. So I kind of thought you would see somebody, walking around the airplane and kind of just take a glance up at the wing like they saw something. But at that point, I don't,
Maybe
I
that
don't
happens in
think
the
it was
movie.
noticed.
I think
Okay.
it's noticed in the movie. So
Yeah.
I've actually seen both of these a lot. So
Yeah.
there are a few things where I'm like a little, like you're talking about his crazy ensemble at the end, and I'm like, is my
Right.
mental picture the one from this episode, or am I thinking of the one from the
Mhm.
movie? Which I guess they're pretty close anyway. But yeah.
But I did specifically look for, okay, is anybody going to notice this damage? Because I mean, Sterling even says it himself. He was like, look, there's physical evidence of this, even though, we're wondering what about Bob? Like, and sometimes there's a physical manifestation of, what we just talked about.
I guess this is the thing, though. I mean, they're gonna find it that day. Word will probably get back. Oh crap, there was something wrong with the wing, and
Yeah.
but Bob has already had another breakdown. The damage is already done to him.
Yeah, but it's funny. Happily, his conviction will not remain isolated too much longer. For happily, tangible manifestation is often left as evidence of trespass, even from such an intangible quarter as
I
the
guess.
Twilight Zone.
See, I guess maybe that's one of the curious things about this episode. The thing that keeps people coming back. You are like, how much psychic
'Cause
scarring did this cause him? Because we get
Bob
to
was
see
right.
he's already recovered. He's
Yeah.
he's
Uh-huh.
doing his best to be normal.
Yeah.
He's been given a real situation that makes him. I mean, he does have another breakdown. That's why the
Yeah.
the, the shout of
But
insanity is
but
there.
but how many times in life have you made a mistake? Probably never.
I've never made any
But
mistakes.
yeah, and for your listeners, Matt made a mistake once. He just thought he was wrong.
I've
But
never made a
the
mistrock. Sorry, I was trying to find a good fun way to pronounce it. Like I say, there was a mistake. I wanted to find a
Mistrake.
I wanted to find a good wrong pronunciation. I failed.
But you make a mistake, you learn your lesson, you come back and you're convinced, like, okay, you're convicted, your conviction is such that I'm going to do it right this time. Okay, I know I made a mistake, or I know I didn't know, and I know I learned, and I'm going to come back and I'm going to do it right. And then the circumstances change, and you still kind of end up on the short end of the stick, but for a different reason. Okay. And I think that's really maybe that's why this episode is so relatable, because we've all done things, regrouped, dusted ourselves off, got back in the game and said, I'm not going to let that happen again. And then something different happens, and you're like, just can't win for losing.
That's where you get things like
So
Murphy's Law from, right?
yeah, yeah. Murphy has several laws that are interesting to talk about.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess that's the fascinating thing. Like, did this actually break him even though he was right? Can you be right and still end up damaged? Which is the final thought of this episode. Which I guess Rod is
Yeah.
trying to be optimistic about it, like, oh, he'll soon be justified. But he's pretty out there. I mean, he's mumbling to himself as they pull him away. He's not like mentally in a great place anymore.
No, he's not. He's in a straitjacket, which isn't a good look. Um, but but yeah, I gotta go with that, what I see and what I hear, and that is Mr. Wilson has that fear no longer. Though for the moment he is, as he said, alone in this assurance, happily his conviction will not remain isolated too much longer.
That's
I
pretty
think I think
optimistic.
I think Bob's gonna be okay. He might, Julia may take the kids and, go to mom's. Uh, he might have to get a different sales job at this point.
Yeah, well,
But
he's probably gonna have to anyway. I don't
yeah, but
know.
I mean, 6 months of sick leave in the '60s, was that a thing?
If you
Oh,
are non-functional, yeah, I guess it is.
yeah. I mean, yeah. But
Um,
it's
How
yeah, we'll see.
how do you think this, in 2024, there's a lot more of a focus on how mental health is treated in, say, a television show? Like we think about it, they try to do it like tastefully.
Hmm.
How do you think this sits? I feel like it's kind of works and it kind of doesn't. I
I
like,
I feel like it's kind of okay. So, he had his mental breakdown. He got treated by a doctor. The doctor said he was cured, right? Now, cured is maybe a little too binary,
yeah,
but still treated by a doctor. You're not, it's not like a once crazy, always crazy kind of thing, because that was kind of the feeling a long time ago, I think, of lack of understanding of mental health issues. Um, so I feel like there was, incident that had a cause caused by stress, received treatment, and now ready to get back out there. I do feel like, and we talked about this on Mission Log the Orville, the episode Firestorm, when somebody has some trauma, the best treatment isn't to throw them right back into that same kind of trauma. So Bob went through 6 pretty tough months. Might should ought to take the train, and maybe a year from now, once you're feeling good, if your wife and I want to take a wife and I, if you and your wife want to take a short flight, uh, try that when you're comfortable. But so, but I honestly was surprised at how much of what this guy that is not a medical doctor, not a trained psychologist, not a psychiatrist, or anything even approaching that. I felt like the talk of mental health was impressively non-offensive. Like I felt like it was pretty good. What do you think worked and what didn't work?
it's kind of like yeah, I feel like nothing was particularly offensive, but me not being knowledgeable enough, I guess I'm just leaving
Yeah.
room for like something that's egregiously wrong here. Um,
Yeah.
it did occur to me like if his salesman job was kind of, George Clooney up in the air and he's just flying all the time, maybe
Yeah.
that's where like you got to fly home because this can't happen when you're on the job. We have to do a test run without not being on the job.
Right. That
That
was
could
this
be
rehire interview.
yeah,
Dang,
it
that's
was a final
deep.
exam, and he got
Yeah.
a C on his final exam at best, I'd say.
I'd say I would take that C
He saved the
and
flight, but he
yeah,
depressurized the captain and screamed at everybody.
I would take that C and run, my man.
Hey, I'm willing to give him a C. He saved some lives. You get, it's again. He does it again when he is going to spend the rest of his life in a salt mine. So he just has to save Earth, and he
Yeah,
he can get a demotion to where he wants to be. Right. That's the
that's
Shat
right.
method,
That's right. Repente.
basically.
Work hard and you'll be treated well. Work
uh,
well and you'll be treated well.
So let's do a few questions on this, I guess. The first one is who
Okay.
who in this episode went through the Twilight Zone, the darkest
Oh,
corner of the
that
Twilight
would
Zone?
be that would be Mr. William
Yes.
Shatner himself, Robert Wilson.
That I don't think anybody can argue that. But let's throw out the rest of the people on the plane. When they find out what happened, does that mean they went through the Twilight Zone or were they oblivious of the Twilight Zone?
I I think well, I'd say most of the passengers were oblivious. So the folks that we had a flight engineer, a flight attendant, and Julia, and the person that got their handgun swiped. First of all, the person that got their handgun swiped probably fired from their job if they were if they were carrying in a, and I don't know what the rules were like in 1963, but um, there's yeah, that's not a thing that would happen today. I'll just leave it at that. But yeah, I think for any sort of law enforcement officer or 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 anybody who's packing in an official capacity, getting your weapon stolen is sort of
Big no no.
a big no-no. Yeah, a good way to get early retirement. Um, his wife, so Julia was the closest one to him. And did she go through the Twilight Zone? She had to deal with his journey, right? She was on that journey right there with him. I don't.
She was perfectly willing to take a nap in that journey, but
Yeah, I know. But hey, she got up and got him water whenever he asked, out of those ridiculous foldable paper cups. Um, I would say that depends if Julia learns that there was tangible evidence of damage to the aircraft or not.
she will. She will. I
She
guess
will.
a lot of the people in the plane might not. Is the airline going to call and say, "Hey, we know what happened with this insane man that, you know, depressurized the cabin and waved a gun around?"
You know what? If I was the airline, I'd be blaming gremlins for that. Like, it
Right,
wasn't
right.
us. Yeah, it wasn't us. It wasn't. And he wasn't crazy. He's there. There's nothing wrong with that.
I guess my question is if you have later knowledge that you did indeed encounter a Twilight Zone, but it's already in the past. I guess you didn't experience it. I don't know.
I
That's what.
think but I still think you went through it. Maybe you just didn't know it at the time.
Yeah, you're just like, wow, that was weird.
Yeah,
So
yeah. So I'm gonna stick with I'm gonna stick with Bob, and then think I think even the engineer and the flight attendant were too far removed. Um, but yeah, I can see an argument for Julia going through it with
yeah,
him. She was with him every step along the way. I
right.
mean, she was Julia's. I think Julia was a we could all do worse than having a wife like Julia.
Yes. Um, but she in because in this episode, she basically has to follow his lead just for the story, right? So the
Right.
question for number two, I don't want to apply to her, but I think this is one of the more interesting examples of question number two. Did Bob Wilson deserve his trip into the Twilight Zone? I just asked it. I'm going to answer it. I still don't know what my answer is, you know?
Yeah, I don't either. He was um I would say Bob's probably been through enough. I
Yeah.
mean, Bob had the high pressure sales job. He had a moment on an airplane about 6 months ago that if I understand what Rod said, did cause the aircraft to divert and land short of destination, which is a big deal. Bob went through that. Sounds like Bob did all the right things during his 6 months under treatment. Bob didn't need this on his flight home. Bob did not deserve this on his flight home. Yeah,
Maybe
I'm gonna.
that's the
I'm
sentence. Bob did not deserve this on his flight home. Now,
yeah.
as someone who's encountered the Twilight Zone, he's a hero of the Twilight Zone, which that's I
He
guess
is,
like
man.
that's like being the king of hell, maybe. I don't know, but
We don't hear a lot about it anymore on airplanes, though, Matt. We don't hear a lot about gremlins on airplanes anymore. Yeah, you can thank Bob for that.
there we go. The hero of the ages. That's fantastic. um, so question three, I guess we answered that. Question three, of course, is the tripometer. Zero is not trippy. Five is very
Hmm.
trippy. Definitely have to put out not based on quality.
Yeah, yeah.
Based
I mean,
on trippiness.
this was a quality episode. Good jump scare, and I remember I'm tap dancing to avoid your question. But man, I remember the first time I think I was self-aware that I saw these episodes because I was I mean because I've been watching these since I was probably a toddler because I had four older siblings watching these episodes daily. Um, so, every night I think it was Trek, then the Twilight Zone. I think it was Honeymooners, Trek, then the Twilight Zone, if I remember right. Watching those things every night, pretty much. And I remember the first time that I really saw this, watched it by myself as a tween, early teenager, something like that. It was eerie. Like it was like noticeably an eerie tale. Um, which I think eeriness and trippiness might have a correlation. Um, I feel like the idea of these beings living among the clouds, messing with airplanes is pretty trippy. I
It's
think
gonna be
that's
trippier for a pilot, isn't
yeah, yeah. I mean
it?
yeah, it really is. But I'm thinking like a 3.8, 3.3.8 trippy meter.
Okay.
because yeah, there's going to be times, you're out there, you're in the clouds. This guy looked kind of cloud-like, big and fluffy, out there. Definitely had mastery of the air by how, gracefully they walked out there. Now Shatner called it a man, so I guess I could say he and assume a pronoun. But how gracefully they walked out on the wing, how gracefully they just sort of skirted off the wing when they were being looked at. I think all that's pretty trippy, my brother.
Okay. I'm starting, I think I almost say this for next week's episode too, but I'm starting a baseline 2.5. For me,
Okay.
I mean, one, not talking about quality, talking about
Yeah.
trippiness.
Right.
It looks generally, like he's acting, trying to act normal through half the episode, except for the
Yeah.
gremlin itself. It doesn't
Hmm.
look too weird. I mean, the final sequence of depressurization is pretty weird. So, uh,
Yeah.
but and then I'm gonna add half a point because of the gremlin suit. You do not forget one of the best monster suits, derpy monster
No.
suits ever. So it's a 3 for me. Um,
Yeah.
I will say the movie version, I would be willing to give a 4 because it has so much weirdness around the edges and it starts
Right.
full crazy. You never see
And
him
it did. And
trying
it
to
had
act
like
normal.
fisheye lens, right? It had
Yeah,
like a
yeah,
close
yeah.
up of Lithgow with the sweating and the pills and the
Right.
yeah.
Quality wise, this one's slightly better. I really like the movie version, but I will give
Yeah.
it to the TV in the end.
Uh-huh.
But for the tripometer, movie version, way trippier than this one. So, um,
I yeah, I agree. In fact, I need to go back and watch that movie again. I haven't seen that probably since it was, it first released on uh when I had like HBO or something, when I was a
feel
kid.
free to skip the first sequence unless you want to feel
Yeah.
dirty. You know about the first
Oh
sequence.
yeah. No, I just pulled it up. Yeah, and I'm looking at it now. I don't remember the first sequence.
One, it's not very good, and two, you're watching the end of Vic Morrow and Children.
Is that
So
is that the one where Vic Morrow loses his life in a
and
helicopter accident?
two children that were not there by correct
Ooh.
business means. So this is one of the many reasons people don't like John Landis.
Yeah.
But so my, I mean, honestly, you're gonna put the movie on, you're gonna watch it, it's fine. But just
Be
segments
warned.
2, 3, and 4 are much better. And I mean, in general, it's not the only one that even comes close to being as good as the show. I would say is the 50,000 feet. I believe it's 50,000 feet in the movie. They fly higher in that one, but
The one with I think it was a 30. It was the one with Adam Scott, right?
which one?
Adam Scott.
Oh, not my brain's breaking. I'm not sure.
Okay. The latest episode, the Jordan Peele series. That one.
Okay. I haven't seen all of those, so
Okay.
it's one of
Yeah,
those
they
things where
remake it in there also.
oh, okay. I haven't seen that one. Because
Yeah.
I'm not. If anyone's wondering why I'm not commenting on it, I watched like 3 or 4 of the peels, and then that's right when I was starting this podcast. I was like, yeah,
Yeah.
let's wait and watch them
They were good.
fresh.
I think I watched about three or four of them as well. Not sure how many they made. Um,
20.
20, but they were the ones that I saw were good. They were
Yeah.
quality productions.
No,
No doubt about
one of
that.
them, I would already say is probably it has one of my top tens for sure already of the ones I've
Okay,
seen. So I mean, of any Twilight Zone, which is the
great.
what's the one? It's the one where the woman's trying to get her son to college, uh, in the
Okay.
deep South, and they're black, and there's a racist cop, and she has
Yeah.
the camcorder will turn back time so they can keep trying something different, and it's
I did
really.
not see that one. I remember the Gillian Jacobs one,
And it
which
has the
was
best final scene, not quite a twist, just the best final scene of I think any Twilight Zone. Uh,
all right,
yeah.
man. Bet I'm
Uh,
I'm gonna go check him out. The looking at the picture of the gremlin from the 1983 film, I don't. It doesn't really, and I guess the big furry beast on the classic Twilight Zone doesn't really look like a trickster, like they were described as being. But man, that one from 1983 sure does not look like a trickster. That looks like more like a demon.
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I guess, and then 1984, of course, is going to give us the gremlins that are currently pop culture, right? So
Yeah, the
that's
Mogwai.
funny. I just typed in 1983 gremlin expecting I was going to get that. I got a
Uh-huh.
bunch of gremlin cars.
Oh, no way. That's funny.
Yeah, I wanted to see the 1983. There we go. I got one now. Yeah, yeah, he's
Oh,
pretty demonic. Okay. But yeah, and I'm seeing an awful lot of cars. Okay. Oh, and there's
yeah.
the Mogwai gremlins. All yeah.
Yep.
So, it's interesting what you get sometimes when you search. Like sometimes you search a movie or something, you're like, I'm not gonna get the movie results. The title's too,
Too
nebulous.
generic. Yeah.
It's like, nope, nope. It mostly gives you the movie when you type that in. Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, if you can get your hands on a AMC Gremlin X, that is a classic car that's still fairly affordable.
Yeah, these orange little numbers look trendy. I'm probably saying that though because I have multiple orange guitars,
Hmm.
electric guitars. Not because I love them, but I guess orange is not actually a popular color, so end up being real cheap. So you're buying a Fender at a heavy discount if you don't mind it being like weird orange.
That's great.
Yeah, yeah. So orange guitars, but this and guitars actually often do electric guitars use car paint colors usually.
Okay.
So it's not a unreal comparison. But now we're talking about Gremlin cars. Gremlins is still it's on topic, I guess.
It's
It's
not
not
on
on topic.
topic.
It's not on topic. There we go. Okay. Do you have any final thoughts you want to throw out on this one?
No, man, just thanks for having me on here. This is an iconic episode, and it's good to be able to join you on these, and especially when there's a aviation sort of angle to them. I thought the aviation stuff in this airplane, I think they avoided a lot of, really getting down in the weeds aviation stuff.
Do we even
But I
have a
thought,
shot in the cockpit? We don't get in the cockpit
no,
in this, do we?
mm-mm.
Yeah.
No, we got those, some of those silly external shots from, outside, kind of the airplane-esque, external view of the aircraft. But with this, fittingly with propeller sounds, which is good. And the way the rain was sort of washing over the wing, I mean, when you're flying, and I know these airplanes are slower than jets, but they're still pretty fast. The rain is for all intents and purposes falling horizontal to you, and not sort of splashing down on the wing the way it showed it. I think Shatner's tie should have been blown around a little bit more. But other than that, I thought the aviation stuff really was it was convincing, man. I was convinced, this was happening in the cabin of an aircraft with a real flight attendant and real passengers. So yeah, kudos.
Should have brought Shatner up to the cockpit and asked him if he liked gladiator movies.
That's right. You like it when your dog rubs up and down on your leg?
uh, anyway, before we start recording, you're saying you're in a bit of a law and producing podcast, but you certainly have a lot of them to listen to, and I assume you have a fair amount in your future if you want to get people hearing about those. Plug
Yeah, so
in.
you can check us out on the Roddenberry Podcast Network, Mission Log the Orville, where we do a very Roddenberry-esque mission log style deep dive into every episode of Seth MacFarlane's The Orville. Having fun with it as we do on Mission Log, and also looking for messages, morals, and meanings. Tangential to that, we covered the Peacock Limited series Ted, created by Seth MacFarlane. And that was a lot of fun. Definitely a different format. That was sponsored by Bear Fight Whiskey. We just brought guests on from the show, chatted with them about the particular episode, while enjoying responsibly a glass of Bear Fight Whiskey. And coming up in the future, we've got my podcast partner has just been hired by Roddenberry Entertainment as an associate producer. So she's looking to do some more programming going forward, including other shows. From what I've been told, the idea for she and I is to be the ones who go out and do the away missions to cover Star Trek adjacent shows, right? Things that are similar yet not canonically Star Trek, and to see if they um kind of hold up in that same kind of light. And normally what's interesting is that these shows are produced, ran, written by, produced by, directed by Star Trek alums. So people like Ronald D. Moore, people like Michael Piller, uh, shows that have been produced by folks in that world that have a long Star Trek background, to see any of those tentacles spread out into the industry. And that's what we're looking at going forward. And that's the very long answer. You can find us on podcasts.roddenberry.com.
I'm kind of assuming your next one on the McFarlane Zone is probably going to be Ted season two. I know the way things are looking, which
Yeah, yeah,
I'll support that.
it might be. Yeah, because they're filming that, and the word from the inside is that Disney did greenlight season 2 of the Orville. However, by the time they did, Seth had already signed a contract to create content for Peacock, and that contract has certain obligations. But once those are filled, then he's free to revisit the Orville at that time. So
Right. Okay.
that's kind of the limbo we're in right now.
That's the problem when you have a creator that makes two things you want to see.
Yeah, yeah, exactly right. Good problem to have.
One, I
Uh,
speaking of getting things out, I didn't know that show existed until you guys started doing the podcast, and then I watched it and loved it, and then I went back and watched the movie. It's like the show's better in the movies.
I love the prequel nature. So, the movies came out, I think, in 2013 and 2014. Don't quote me on that, plus or minus maybe a year. So they obviously, well, I mean, the way Seth put it, we obviously couldn't get Wahlberg to do the TV show. Not with that spirit, I'll say. But so they decided to do a prequel. So they just kind of backed that up 20 years. And the nostalgia that I have for the early 90s at that point just adds a whole nother dimension to that show that just makes it a lot of fun for
That's
me
part of
personally.
it. I like the supporting cast better. I
Yeah.
don't miss Mark Wahlberg in the TV show. Just and
What do you mean? What do you mean you don't miss him? What's the matter with you? You don't miss Mark Wahlberg?
Yeah. And don't look into his past too deep.
Yeah. Yeah, don't. Or
Um,
or yeah.
but anyway, I'm just gonna throw out that the TV show is really good. So yes, people should watch that, listen to your podcast, and do that.
Yeah, and we like digging into it. It had about five people I can name involved from the Orville. Obviously, Seth, um, Georgia
Scott
Wiggum, who was in a
Grimes.
couple of episodes. I'm sorry,
Scott Grimes.
Scott Grimes, Max Burkholder, and Penny Johnson Gerald are all involved in it. Mike Henry shows up. Mike Henry played Lieutenant Dan in the Orville, as well as voiced
I guess I
Cleveland
would not have
for
recognized him in
yeah.
Ted then.
No, he probably because he didn't have his big stupid head. But it was yeah, so it was really fun, and it's kind of neat to see that group, doing different things together and having fun. And by all accounts from guests we had on the show, they said it's just a blast to work with those people. Alana Ubach, who plays Susan, the mom on the show, just it was her first time working with this group of very tight knit people that have been working together for a while. And she said she was included from the get-go, and they were just a blast to work with. So you can check out those interviews as well on Talking Ted.
Not TED Talks. Be careful.
Yeah, we're hoping we're getting a lot of accidental hits, but we'll see.
It happens sometimes.
Yeah.
uh, as for my sphere of podcasting, of course, you can support us on Patreon at Podcastius, where we do several podcasts, which, Mike, I think you've shown up on several of these. There's podcast 1999. We just finished talking about Space 1999, and we'll be
Check.
turning our lens over to the apes, 70s apes. We're sticking with 70s apes, I think. So it'll be the movies and the TV shows. There's a live action one, there's an animated one. So we'll see how that goes. We're
Right.
staying in the 70s with our TV sci-fi. Films and Filth, you've been there. That's where we look at the top
Mm-hmm.
100 movies on IMDb and the bottom 100 movies on IMDb, and have a chat and decide if they deserve to be on that list or not. So those and some video game ones which you will not hear us on, like Luke of Pokemon the Game Show. But hey, if you're into games, there's something to do. So. Hey man,
Are you going to cover the I think it's a novella of Planet of the Apes that the film was based on?
oh, I have read it. I don't know. I
Yeah.
guess I need to read it again, don't I? Yeah. I
Yeah, and
hadn't really
it's
thought
pretty
about
quick
that.
read. It's good. It's, you can definitely see that, the book was, or, sorry, the film was inspired by it, or,
See,
based on it. That's about as far as you can get,
y-
really.
yes. As I said, the third one is more like the original book, actually, if you just flip
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
roles.
yeah.
So,
Uh-huh.
and
Yep.
the animated series has the apes like flying jets and stuff. So,
Yeah.
they have technology in the animated series, which I haven't seen yet.
Hmm.
But where was I? Oh yeah, but yeah, of course, I have this Twilight Zone podcast. So when I think of the first ape movie, I'm always like, oh, Rod Serling wrote the first version, the first
Right.
draft of the screenplay.
Yeah.
So, not the final, but the first. So.
Yeah. I think the world of those. I know I wasn't old enough to see the original Planet of the Apes in the movies during first run, but I saw the movies when I was probably 5, 6, 7 years old, something like that. Just kind of came back, which was, before VCRs and before home video and stuff like that. They would just re-release movies for whatever reason
Oh,
to show
here's a
again.
fun. I didn't know this. They had packaged the TV show into 5 additional movies. So during Ape Week, you were getting fake movies.
Yeah.
And some of them have like insane titles. So, and then
Right.
this one's just like Return to the Planet of the Apes. And then, yeah, we're not doing those. We're going to do the TV show. But because Space 1999 has like 3 movies too, where they just recompiled.
Right. Yeah.
And
Diary of a Space Princess or something like
they
that. Yeah.
actually shot a little bit of extra footage, especially for the first one, because they shot Earth scenes, like people on Earth
Yeah.
during breakaway. So, uh, yeah.
Were they going like,
I
ah?
don't know. I haven't watched it. It's a little hard to find, to be
Okay.
honest.
Yeah. Also a little, always a little curious how the moon with, waste disposal sites A and B being on the dark side of the moon, aka the far side of the moon, when those things went boom,
The moon
why
can
the
fly
moon?
through planets. We learned this in later episodes, like collision course.
Okay, that's true. Well, I was going to say why the moon didn't just, because it would have been the shortest series in history if the moon just rammed into the Earth. Just closing credits, produced by Freddie Freiberger.
All right. Okay, I
I
guess
guess he didn't come along till season 2 anyway.
yeah, there's one of the best things about just to tie it back to 20,000 feet. At least this did not end with a produced by Freddie Freiberger credit.
That's true.
There's a
Yeah,
man out there.
or else it would have been the last episode.
There's a
But
man out there.
man, Matheson and Donner, holy cow, that's a tour de force, man. That really is.
Boom, back to topic. Okay, I will cut it there. I guess I'll just hit the recording and see
Yeah.
so we start